Hello and welcome to the Bell Mama Hypnobirthing and Positive Birth podcast. My name is Ellie Waddington. I'm a hypnobirthing teacher, antenatal instructor and positive birth coach, and I'm here to help you go into the birth of your baby with a positive mindset. Every week I share my top tips, advice and amazing birth stories to help you go from fearful and anxious about your birth to positive and confident. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and let's get into this episode. Hello my lovelies and welcome back. Today in this episode we're going to be talking all about fear. And I thought this is a really good topic to start off my podcast really, because you know if you can nail fear, if you can reduce your fear or even eradicate it completely, if you can go into your birth with a positive mindset, that lays the way, it kind of paves the way for everything else just follows so much more easily if you can get fear under control. So today I'm going to talk to you about fear, where it comes from, why we are so scared of birth, how it can have a real negative impact on your pregnancy and your birth experience, and why positive mindset is the thing. Why positive mindset is really, really important and what we strive to achieve in hypnobirthing. So let's get into it. So fear. Let's talk about fear. We're all terrified of birth, aren't we though? And that's why a lot of people actually find hypnobirthing. That's why a lot of people come to me, my clients, my relaxation retreats, on Instagram, the people that contact me, they want this because they're scared of the pain, they're scared of things going wrong, they're scared of hospitals. We all have this fear of childbirth, and we have that from a really young age. We're taught that childbirth is a scary thing, that it's a negative thing, aren't we? So where do those fears actually come from? Because, lots of the people that come on my courses, lots of the couples, they're first-time parents. They haven't actually experienced birth before. So where are they getting their information from? Where are they getting their fears from? These messages, these images that birth is scary. Well, first off, the one that everyone knows, everyone can think about, the image that they have in their head is from television, it's from film and television. Really think about it. Have you ever actually seen a normal, a natural birth just unfold in television or in film, where everything was just natural and lovely and it was a positive experience? Have you ever actually seen that depicted in film or television? Probably not that you can think of anyway, and it certainly wouldn't be the norm. No, if you had ever seen that depicted in television, it'd be quite rare. Normally, when we see birth in television, it's really quite dramatic. It's loud, and there are people rushing around, and your waters break all over someone's feet. And then, it's a really quick journey to the hospital, and then everyone's in the hospital screaming, and the woman's on her back pushing, and she's holding her breath and pushing as hard as she can. And it's not a particularly nice image of birth, but what you have to remember is that that's put together purely for entertainment. That's not for educational purposes, it's just purely for entertainment. And so it's not an accurate representation of birth at all, but it does stick in your mind, doesn't it? It does give you that image, and that's what you do think about every time you think of birth now. You have those images. And so something that I always tell people is that physiological birth, when it unfolds and it's left just to naturally do its thing, it's actually quite boring. It's not exciting at all, like the films and the television programs that they make out. It's actually quite boring. So that's why they have to make it dramatic. It's why they have to speed it up and fit it into like a 20-minute program, because it, with actual labour, there's a lot of kind of waiting around and pacing, and if you're having a hospital birth, you phone the hospital and ask them if it's okay to go in, whereas on television you seem to get this idea that you just, as soon as your waters break, everyone gets in a taxi and rushes to the hospital. So as film and television is obviously the first big place that you're going to get your images from. And the second one is friends and family just giving you horror stories. And even complete strangers, to be honest. When you announce your pregnancy, you become a magnet for people wanting to tell you their horror stories. And you can see it on people's faces. They take great pleasure, they relish telling you things like, oh, you just wait for the pain. I was in labour for 2 days and it feels like breaking every bone in your body. It feels like pooing out a watermelon, and you'll be begging for all the drugs. And I don't know why. Maybe I'll learn this one day. If someone could shed some light on it for me, that would be great. But I don't know why we feel the need to scare the bejesus out of new mums. You literally have everyone coming at you, telling you how bad and scary labour is and telling you horror stories. I remember so it was about 2 weeks before going on my maternity leave with Annabelle, and I was obviously all in my oxytocin bubble, gearing up for my own birth. And it was the last phone call that I took at work. Someone inquiring about something or other. Obviously before my hypnobirthing days. And we just got talking, and it came to light that she was actually a retired midwife. And she was asking about my baby and my plans. And she started just telling me, oh, it's all okay. Home births are all okay as long as you don't have things go wrong. As you don't have things like breech babies or a postpartum hemorrhage and blah blah blah. And she started to list all the things that could possibly go wrong, could happen at a home birth. And I literally just had to cut her off and say, look, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get myself into a positive mindset here, and I don't really want to listen to this. And she was apologetic afterwards, to be fair. She said she didn't mean to upset me, but it's kind of that, why is it just assumed that it's okay to talk to a pregnant woman about the negative things that people go through? You know what I mean? Why is it okay? Why do people assume that consent is automatically given to tell that pregnant woman negative things? It's really bizarre. So anyway, if you do come across this, if people are telling you horror stories and it's making you uncomfortable, it's okay to cut them off. Do feel free to put your foot down, set your boundaries, and tell them, no thank you, I don't want to hear this. So I went off on a little bit of a tangent there, to be honest. That wasn't what I meant to say, but there we go. So that's now 2 sources of information, whether they're accurate sources of information or not. So you've got the film and television, and you've got your friends and family. And the third one that not a lot of people think about, but which I think is quite important, is from the healthcare professionals themselves, whether intentionally or not. But certainly I remember from both of my pregnancies, from quite early on, I had midwives talking to me about pain relief, and they were bringing it up each time in lots of my appointments, talking about my options for pain relief, even though I hadn't given any sort of indication that I was concerned about pain or that it was something that I was worried about. And so they were bringing up my options to do with pharmaceutical pain relief. And so if as a newly pregnant person you have the medical staff bringing up pain relief, what does that indicate to you? That's kind of putting that message into your head that there's going to be pain and that you're going to struggle to cope with it. Am I right? And so it just seems a bit of a strange thing to be bringing up when you don't even know that person, you don't even know how they cope with pain, or whether they even want to be offered pain relief, because there are plenty of people that put in their birth plan, and that was me included in my birth plan with Annabelle. I wrote that I did absolutely not want to be offered pain relief, because I was quite happy to do it without. So those are the 3 kind of main sources where we're getting these negative images of birth from, and where our fears develop. Oh, and the last one that I want to say, actually, so this is a 4th one, it kind of comes under television. There is a well-known documentary series on Channel 4 set in various hospitals around the UK, and they follow the kind of day-to-day life on a labour ward, and there's lots of people giving birth, and often, and this was me included, I was guilty of this, pregnant people will watch these programs to try and get themselves prepared, in inverted commas, to prepare themselves for birth and what it's going to look like. But again, what I want to tell you is that program is put together purely for entertainment purposes. There is nothing educational about that program, and all you are going to do is terrify yourself, because they will pick the 5 or 6 most dramatic births from that day and squeeze them into one 1-hour program. Yeah, so stop watching that particular program. You all know the one I mean. I don't need to say the name of it. You all know exactly which program I'm talking about. Just stop watching it. So now that you have all of these fears, all of these horrible images of birth in your head, all the images of pain and screaming and blood and hospitals, what does that actually do to you? Well, for one, it makes for a really anxious pregnancy. If you were spending your entire pregnancy scared of what's to come at the end of it, birth becomes this kind of black cloud hanging over the end of your pregnancy. And if you're spending your entire pregnancy worried about it, you're not getting to do all of the fun things that come with being pregnant. All of the planning your nursery, nesting, going to relaxation classes, going to pregnancy yoga, going to aquanatal classes. You should be enjoying your pregnancy. You should be feeling like a goddess. You should be excited about what's to come. But if you have this fear looming over you, then it's really tricky. It's really hard to enjoy your pregnancy if you're scared of what's to come. Does that make sense? And this fear, this anxiety can then manifest itself into physical symptoms. There are lots of people that when they are stressed and anxious, they get physical symptoms of that. And again, that's just going to lead to a lot more unpleasantness and even mental health problems as well. Now, with regards to birth itself and how fear impacts on physiological birth itself, this is where it gets really, really interesting. There was a guy called Dr. Grantley Dick Reed who basically did lots of studying into the effects of fear actually on the physiological labour process, and he discovered that the people that went into birth with fear, that were fearing the pain, they're fearing the contractions, they actually had a worse time of it. They were more likely to feel pain and to get panicky and to want the pain relief and to need interventions. But the people that went into birth with no preconceived ideas or with a positive or neutral mindset, they were more likely to have a positive birth experience. They were either not feeling the pain or they were more able to cope with the pain that they were feeling if they did feel pain. And so Dr. Grantley Dick Reed, he actually created this term that we call the fear, tension, pain cycle. I'm going to explain that to you now. So basically what this cycle is that you go into your contractions being really, really scared of the pain that's going to come from a contraction. And when you are scared of that pain, what you do is you tense up. You kind of, clench your fists, grab onto the edge of a table or something, grit your teeth, close your eyes, and you're really tense. And you're just literally waiting for that contraction to go away. Now, when you're really, really tense through that contraction, you are not allowing your uterus to do its job. And I'm going to talk about this in a little bit more detail in some later episodes about what actually happens during a contraction. But for now, I'm just going to, going through it kind of very briefly. But your uterus during a contraction is doing a very specific job. And when you are very tense, that means that muscle, because your uterus is a big muscle, basically a big bag of muscles, it's not able to do that job as effectively. So that means that it's going to be a lot more painful for you, and labor is going to take potentially a lot longer as well, because it's going to take a lot longer for your uterus to do its job, if that makes any sense. So this cycle basically says that you are scared of a contraction, therefore you tense up. So you create tension. And so because you are really, really tense, you feel more pain. And so because you feel more pain, you then fear the next contraction. And so it just goes round and round and round in a cycle. And so that fear of pain becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so you think, oh, they do hurt, as much as I thought they were going to. And then you're scared, and it just kind of escalates from there. You get more and more scared of the pain, and it becomes more and more painful because of how tense you're getting. Now, I'm not for a moment suggesting that if you're happy and smiley that you're just going to have like a completely pain-free birth. I'm not suggesting that at all. But what I am suggesting is that it's going to be less uncomfortable for you, and it could potentially be a shorter labour if you do learn how to relax and how to embrace those contractions. Now, the second way that fear impacts physiological birth is by releasing adrenaline. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of adrenaline. Adrenaline is a hormone that gets released when you are scared of something. When you are scared, when your body sees that you are in some sort of danger, you release adrenaline, and this triggers the fight or flight response in your body. Your body thinks that there is something to be scared of, something to that's going to hurt you, it's going to cause you harm, and so it's causing the fight or flight response, which means that you are either getting ready to fight this danger or run away from this danger. Now, when adrenaline is released into your body, lots of things happen. There are loads and loads of minute little changes in your body that are preparing your body for either fighting this danger or running away from this danger. But for the purpose of this explanation, I'm going to just focus on 3 of those things. Now, the first thing that happens is that you become hyper aware of your surroundings. You release adrenaline and you become hyper aware of everything that's around you. And you do this by your pupils really quickly dilate, and your hearing actually improves really, really quickly for a few seconds. And you become hyper aware so that you are able to assess the danger and either fight it, think of a plan to fight it or run away from it. Now, if you were up against actual danger, then that's a really useful thing to happen. But in the case of giving birth, that's not ideal at all, because when you are in labour, your body, your brain is trying to go into your zone, and it's very difficult to explain this zone. But you'll know when it happens. When you go into labour, you start to kind of switch off from the world around you. You just start to focus really inwardly on what you're doing, the task at hand, on your breathing, and you go into your zone. And that makes the time pass really quickly. You completely lose track of time, and it passes really, really quickly. And you're better able to cope with the sensations of labour. Now, if you are going into a hyper state of alertness because of the adrenaline, that's really difficult to go into that deep state of relaxation, into that zone. So that's one way in which adrenaline is going to have a negative impact on physiological birth. Now, the next thing that adrenaline does is it actively blocks oxytocin. Now, oxytocin is the hormone that starts labour off, and it keeps labour going. It's a natural pain reliever, and it's the hormone that we want lots and lots of during the birth process. But of course, if adrenaline is there actively blocking it, then again, that's a bad thing. That's bad. That's not what we want at all. Now, the third thing that adrenaline does is it starts to your heart starts to pump really, really quickly, and it starts to direct blood out towards your extremities, so your hands, your fingers, your feet, ready to either fight this danger or run away from this danger. Now, during labour, we want all of our oxygenated blood down in our abdomen and our uterus, because that's where we're doing lots and lots of hard work. So if all the blood is going elsewhere, again, that's going to cause a lot more discomfort to you during your contractions, and it's going to make labour potentially a lot longer as well. So that is 3 ways in which adrenaline can negatively impact on the birth experience. Now, we see it in loads of other mammals. All mammals need the same basic things in order to give birth, feel safe, and for physiological birth to unfold. And that is privacy and safety and quiet, and usually darkness as well. If you think about where your dog or your pet cat would go to give birth, they wouldn't give birth out in the middle of the living room with bright lights with everyone watching them, would they? Like, your animals, your pets, wild animals, they choose to go and give birth in privacy, in dark, enclosed, secluded places. And biologically speaking, that's what we really want as well. And that's why a lot of people go into labour at night, overnight, when they're in their own homes and they feel safe and they feel secluded and private and safe. And then labours can actually stall. When you are in the car on the way to the hospital, when you arrive at the hospital, your labour can actually stall because your body is saying that this is not a safe place to give birth. This is not where you should be birthing your baby. And it's not because hospitals are inherently unsafe in themselves. It's just that biologically speaking, your cavewoman brain has not caught up to the fact that we're in the 21st century. So your cavewoman brain is telling you that you need somewhere dark and private, away from strangers, to give birth. But of course, the norm now is for us to go into hospital. And so if your body thinks that this is not a safe place to give birth, all of those things that I was talking about earlier, they happen. So releasing adrenaline, the tension, everything about that, it all just basically works against what you're actually trying to do. It works against you trying to birth your baby. So in learning and practicing hypnobirthing, what we're actually trying to do is to reprogram your brain into no longer being scared of childbirth, no longer seeing it as the danger, the thing that's going to trigger your fight or flight instinct. It's something to be excited about, it's something to be confident about. And also to learn techniques, the actual hypnobirthing techniques that you can use anywhere. So wherever you do choose to birth your baby, whether that is in a hospital or a birth centre, a midwife unit, or at home, or whether you choose to free birth, they are techniques that you can take anywhere. And so you can learn to relax and work with your body and create your little birth nest, your little oxytocin bubble, wherever you are. And that's the great thing about hypnobirthing, is that it works absolutely anywhere. It's fantastic. It's a portable skill. So that's really just what I wanted to talk to you about today. Now, talking about fear and the negative impact that it can have on birth is not necessarily the most fun thing to talk about, but for all the people that I do work with, all my hypnobirthing clients, it's really important that you do have this knowledge so that you understand what it is that we are trying to achieve through hypnobirthing. So I hope that you have got a little bit of info out of this episode today, and in the next episode I'm going to share with you a few tips and tricks for actually changing your mindset, things that you can start doing on a daily basis to start changing your mindset from scared and anxious and worried where you are at the moment to confident and empowered and looking forward to your birth. So be sure to hit the follow button, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!